and call the November 22nd Seward City Council regular meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, Chief.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Tonight's roll call: McClure,
Here.
Osenga,
Here.
Calhoun,
Here.
Wells,
Here.
Casagrande is excused, Demas,
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject, except those items scheduled for public hearing. So while the clerk gets that sign-in sheet, if you want to speak to the budget, there's two resolutions, 2021-129 and 2021-130, and those will actually have public hearings. So this will be comments on other items currently on the agenda. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Yes, ma'am, we have Ellen O'Brien.
You might want to wait and speak during the first public hearing, is when you're going to want to speak. Okay. She's going to speak to the budget.
I see. Okay. Then we had a miscommunication. All right. Next signed in then is Christiana Smith.
Hello, my name is Christiana Smith and I live outside of Seward city limits. First, I want to thank everyone on council for creating such a welcoming environment for citizen comments. Bringing my daughter in 2 weeks ago was really warming to my heart with the response and welcoming that she felt. It is a scary thing, even as an adult, to come up and speak. And so I just wanted to say thank you for creating such an open, welcoming environment for citizen comments, and encourage anyone to come forward and speak. I also came here tonight to ask to approve the purchase of the ice melt system for the Seward Animal Shelter. The benefits of the system, there was a presentation as well as the benefits outlined in the packet, which were a little bit streamlined from the original proposal. I believe it is still adequate for what is needed at the animal shelter for the benefits of not only the maintenance of the concrete, but also the maintenance of the facility and limiting staff hours to outdoor maintenance. And I believe that approving this amount outside of the contingency funds is a great use of monies, because it's not at 100% design yet, and so we don't know what else will come up, and this will keep the project moving. And so I just encourage you all to think about the benefits versus cost and keeping the project of the Seward Animal Shelter moving forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else signed in to speak?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Go ahead. Come to the podium.
Linda Big Hat, outside city limits. Mayor, council, administration, and citizens, I'm going to go back to my request that you research, locate, and build a new wastewater facility in town. I'm asking that you add this to your current CIP list as the #1 item. There's money in the new federal infrastructure bill, so now is the time to act. And let me explain why I'm making this request again. In your packet, if you were to turn to the city manager report, Public Works Department, bullet number 3, it appears that the Public Works Department is refusing to prioritize all the recommendations from your consultant. Let's review how long you, and as a byproduct, the residents and visitors to Lowell Point have been dealing with this malfunctioning lagoon. The lagoon went anaerobic and began producing hydrogen sulfide, which is a deadly gas, for those of you that don't know, in the spring of 2012. It will be 10 years come April or May. We lived under those unhealthy conditions for 2012, 2013, 2014, which was the year it made national news. You could smell it at Fox Island. You could smell it at the boat harbor. Councilmember Casagrande could smell it at her house. In the early summer of 2015, the dredge was performed. And although the problem of hydrogen sulfide was relieved, the problems of odors was not. Nor has the problem ever gone away. The dredge fixed only a part of the problem that we were experiencing. For at least 8 to 10 months of each year, we are robbed of the enjoyment of our properties because the air stinks. It may not be a health hazard in the sense of a deadly gas, but it is a mental health hazard, and it is a violation of our natural rights to live unhindered from noxious fumes on our property. Preventing us the natural enjoyment of our property is illegal. And now the Public Works Department is suggesting that we should wait. So the first two bullets don't address anything in terms of fixing a problem. The first bullet, we should wait until 2015 or 2016, another 4 to 5 years before the most significant improvement would be performed. The city is acting as if allowing this facility to be in a state of failure since 2012 till to 2026 potentially is acceptable. And sorry, not only is it not acceptable, but it's outrageous. You must be able to see the point I'm making and agree. We can't all go on with this for another 5 years. I believe you can build a new modern facility in less than 5 years if you were to act with urgency. Plus, the surface of the lagoon is frozen again, so we could potentially have the same problems that we had just a year ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
A second.
Are there any changes? Vice Mayor?
I'd like to put Resolution 2021-133 on the consent agenda.
Are there any objections? Okay, thank you.
And
Go ahead.
I'd like to put Resolution 2021-134 on the consent agenda.
Are there any objections? Okay. Yes?
And I would like to put Resolution 2021-135 on the consent agenda.
Any objections? Thank you. Any other changes? Amendments? Last call? Madam Clerk, if we could get a vote, please.
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Osenga,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
DeVos,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved, and approved on tonight's consent agenda. Resolution 2021-131, authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the agreement between the City of Seward and the Boys and Girls Club of the Kenai Peninsula. Resolution 2021-132, supporting full funding, $20,160,062 for the State of Alaska Municipal Harbor Facility Grant Program in the fiscal year 2023 state capital budget. Resolution 2021-133, approving the purchase of an ice melt system for the Seward Animal Shelter from Dawson Construction in the amount of $31,998.65 and appropriating funds. Resolution 2021-134, repealing Resolution 2021-111, and authorizing the city manager to purchase one 2022 Ford F-150 crew cab with Kendall Ford of Anchorage for the purchase of a vehicle for the building department using the state's competitive procurement fleet vehicle contract in the amount of $38,586 and appropriating funds. Resolution 2021-135, repealing Resolution 2021-128, and authorizing the city manager to purchase 3 2022 Ford Explorer police package vehicles from Kendall Ford under the State of Alaska Fleet Vehicle Contract with associated upfitting and police-specific equipment from Alaska Safety, Dell Technologies, Procom Alaska, and the printer in an amount not to exceed $194,831.91 and appropriating funds. Also approved on consent is a non-objection to the renewal of the liquor license number 5287 for the restaurant eating place license, public convenience for Seward Brewing Company. This license has been extended with this renewal from seasonal to year-round. You have a non-objection to the renewal of liquor license number 5288, Brew Pub for Seward Brewing Company. This license is also extended with this renewal from seasonal to year-round. You have appointed Michael Brown and Brandy Homdahl to the Port and Commerce Advisory Board with terms to expire July 2024 and July 2023, respectively. You have directed the city clerk to advertise the vacancy on the KPB Planning Commission with a deadline of December 6, 2021 at 5 p.m. And you are authorizing the mayor to send a letter to the KPB Assembly encouraging them to meet in Seward on April 19, 2022.
Great, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is proclamations and awards, and we're going to start with dispatcher Donnie Lane for saving our life. Yay! This is the good part.
This is the good stuff.
So I'll have you stand right here. So the City of Seward proudly presents this award of life-saving to Donald Lane. We're using your full name. So for his historic dispatching efforts during the October 29th, 2021 heart attack response and rescue. Whereas on the 29th of October 2021, dispatcher Donald Lane answered a 911 call from a residential address for the report of a person having a heart attack. And whereas dispatcher Lane sent the police and fire assets to the scene, whereas dispatcher Lane assessed the situation over the phone and began directing the caller to take life-saving measures. Whereas dispatcher Lane showed calm professionalism and followed training protocols to the letter. And whereas thanks to his life-saving actions, the patient was able to be saved and transported to a medical facility. And whereas through his quick thinking and divisive actions, dispatcher Lane prevented death. And whereas the City of Seward is honored and grateful to have dispatcher Donald Lane as a member of the Seward Police Department. And whereas dispatcher Donald Lane is to be commended for his heroic efforts. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby express my sincere appreciation to dispatcher Donald Lane and commend him for his selfless act of heroism, and do proudly present him with this award on the life-saving on behalf of the grateful citizens of Seward, dated this 22nd day of November 2021. Thank you so much. Beautiful wife and gorgeous baby.
Sure, they're sitting right there. That's my wife Delaney and my 3-month-old baby Tennyson. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I want to remind everybody that I'm one part of a lot of moving parts too. This award obviously isn't possible without the efforts of Seward Fire Department and Deputy Chief Kate McCoy and her husband, first responders on scene, Officer McKillick and the other recipient tonight. They provided life-saving measures along with the SVAC crew, transported to the hospital, so a special thank you to them too. And once again, thank you for the recognition, I appreciate it.
And next, Officer McKillican is not here tonight. Are you accepting on his behalf?
Yes, Mayor.
So I'm going to read this. This is a proclamation for Officer Dave McKillican. Whereas on the 29th of October 2021, Officer Dave McKillican responded to a 911 call from a residential address for the report of a person having a heart attack. And whereas Officer McKillican responded to the scene and deployed the AED device, and whereas Officer began CPR with the assistance of Deputy Fire Chief McCoy, and whereas he showed calm professionalism and followed training protocols to the letter, and whereas thanks to his life-saving actions, the patient was able to be saved and transported to a medical facility. Through his quick thinking and divisive actions, Officer McKillican prevented death, and whereas the City of Seward is honored and grateful to have Officer Dave McKillican as a member of the Seward Police Department. Whereas Officer Dave McKillican is to be commended for his heroic efforts. Now therefore, I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby express my sincere appreciation to the officer and commend him for his selfless act of heroism, and do proudly present him with this award of life-saving on behalf of the grateful citizens of Seward. So let's give him a round of applause.
Dave has been a very valuable member of our team. He's always there when I'm home. I remember one time at 2 in the morning, he just gotten off shift, only had like 2 hours of sleep, and he came out to help me in a really serious motorcycle accident. You can always count on Dave to show up. He's responsible for Operation Glow. There's people who helped him, but it was his brainstorm. He ran with it. I'm very happy to have him on the team, and I hope he stays with us.
Thank you so much. That's a good part of my job, so thank you both for that. Next on the agenda is City Manager's Report. If you want to turn to page 8, that's where it starts. And I know City Manager Bauer is on personal leave, so I'll turn that over to Assistant City Manager.
Well, good evening, everybody. Couple pieces of good news I just want to let you guys know about. We received our preliminary sales tax information from the finance director at the borough a few days ago. We don't have the hard numbers yet. We just have kind of the big picture projection. I'll be sending council the information as soon as we actually receive the funds, but the preliminary numbers look really encouraging. Q3, which as you know is our biggest check of the year, was up 13% in taxable sales over 2019, so strongest year ever. And like I said, I'll give you that information once it's out, but just another really good quarter to follow up on our Q2 numbers. The city manager and I have been in pretty earnest conversation with our state lobbyist, our federal lobbyist, as well as R&M and their grant writing team. We just had a follow-up meeting with our grant writer, Ben Coleman, with R&M mid last week to talk about accessing the infrastructure bill money. And as I just want to let you guys know, as that comes to fruition and the detailed guidance comes out, we're also going to be following back up with Senator Sullivan, Senator Murkowski, and Congressman Young's office. We expressed that our #1 priority is getting the Lowell Creek Tunnel done. It's kind of one of those defining projects that we would like to see. We went with the Army Corps of Engineers middle of last week to talk to their project manager about that as well, and just continue to push that forward. We're looking to have that project be fully funded as soon as we possibly can. So we'll continue to give you guys updates on the infrastructure bill as we move forward. And then I just wanted to respond back with regard to the section from the Public Works Director. The 7 recommendations that R&M and their sub-consultant gave us on the lagoon, those items are going to stay in the CMR until that project is completely done. So it is absolutely our every intention to address those 7 items that are listed in there in as timely of a manner as possible and get those completed. So I can see how the wording might make you feeling otherwise, but I just want to ensure the public and council that we will absolutely move forward and get those done as quickly of a manner as feasible. So that's all I've got.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the administration? Councilmember?
Just one question on the statement about the electric bond payment. Could you just explain that a little bit, how that's coming about in 23, 24, or are there going to be partial payments prior to that so we can get a little better idea on that?
So I'll give you the real quick point and then I'll turn it over to Acting Finance Director Hickok. So just, we don't have a firm date. I know you guys received a communication from a citizen earlier today with regards to budgeting the bond payments in 2022. The problematic thing about that is we will definitively not be making a bond payment in 2022. The bond bank is waiting on finishing out the paperwork. They don't just do our bond, they do a number of other bonds at the same time. And so because of that, we're probably looking at April, maybe even May, June, before our bond is going to be, I guess, closed. I know there was some questions about why a resolution hasn't come before council yet. That's true. Finance is working on the bond, the electric revenue bond resolution, and that will be coming before you guys shortly. So, Sam, you want to speak to the?
Yeah, so like he said, it really depends on, we're at the mercy of the bond bank. They do like to wait to have a number of communities wanting to bond at the same time because it saves issuing costs. So that we're just waiting on them. They're expecting more applications from other cities. We were just one of the first to put ours in. And like he said, the later it's issued, the more likely we won't have to make any payments in '22. If we do make any payments, it's going to be interest only. We won't make any principal until at least '23 or '24. There was some questions about whether or not the electric department had enough revenue to make the payments. So I contacted PFM, which is the financial consultant of the bond bank, and they review our financial statements and make a decision on whether or not they recommend that the bond bank issues the bonds to us. So I called the director there. So they do look at our financial statements, which include our revenue and expenses, and they do look at transfers, but the way they work is they make the assumption that if we don't have sufficient revenues, hang on just a second. They look at our revenues and we have enough to meet our expenses and our debt service payments, and then we would reduce transfers to the general fund if we did not have enough for that. So they're just looking at the revenues and expenses and they say, yes, we have enough sufficient revenues to issue the bonds. We just may not have enough to transfer to the general fund to cover those transfers in the budget. So city manager put in there about looking at rates, and so that's something that would need to be addressed in the future if we get to that point where there's not enough to make the bond payments and make our transfers into the general fund.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up or did that answer your question?
It's good,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you. That was good. Are there any other questions for administration, Vice Mayor?
Not a question, but included in the report was the notice of the updated tsunami mapping presentation. And do you want to speak to that, or can I just want to encourage people to attend. I heard this Dr., I never pronounce her last name correctly, but geophysicist from University of Alaska Geophysical is presenting the new tsunami hazard map on December 7th at 6 p.m. at the library community room. And it will be eye-opening, I think. It was eye-opening when I heard her speak before, so I think it's something that we should encourage people to come to, and I'll be speaking to it several times in things I do to get people to come out. So.
Any other comments? I have one thing to highlight and then a question. I just want to thank administration for having that completion for the full Fort Raymond substation fence. That was a danger for the community for such a long time, and thank you for getting that done. And then I also want to congratulate the acting finance director and say thank you for doing that internal utility audit. And I know that a number of things were discovered on both sides, underbillings and overbillings. And I understand a lot of it might be proprietary and we don't want to let customer information out, but is there any sort of final product we could look at, or any sort of spreadsheet, or, you know, just to get more information on how that worked out, or, you know, now this this practice is in place, or this is a new protocol and procedure, so that, you know, now that we're trued up again, how we can avoid it in the future? Is any of that planned?
Sam will probably have something to add to what I'm about to say, but I would say that process is still underway. There's definitely a lot more that we're looking at than we originally thought. And I would highlight too that the work that the forensic audit, the green accounting, is doing is distinct from what we're doing for a couple reasons. One, the forensic audit is a look back on 4 months from 2018 and 2019 and looking at very specific items, whereas our own internal work that staff are doing is taking a more boots on the ground approach, which, as we started peeling back the layers on the onion, so to speak, a lot of the, frankly, underbillings, because and Sam might feel free to jump in and correct me, from what I've seen, it's been about 2/3 of the quote-unquote errors have been underbillings and not overbillings. And a lot of it's historical, and some of it goes back a long, long time, where I'll just give you an illustrative example, something that our forensic auditors are not going to pick up on, but we have, is we went out and did a physical
a physical inventory of everybody's water service line, and maybe we were billing off of a 1-inch line, and in fact it's 2 1/4. So that's the type of work that we're going through now, to like look at those things that you wouldn't catch if you're our forensic auditor, you know, in Chicago. So that work is very distinct. So I guess I would highlight that for you guys as you think about what's going to be forthcoming. Once our internal work is done, we'll bring something back to you guys at a really high level. Of course, we can't give names and dates and amounts, but we can bring you guys like a big picture recap. The longer we go, the more we're finding, and we're just looking at different things. So that project's still underway.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got an update today from the staff member working on it. She's about 50% of the way through. My hope is that we can come out with something similar time frame as the forensic auditor, so we can kind of do that hand in hand. But yeah, like he said, it's a lot of underbillings, because if we didn't have the correct information, we being people in years in the past, they would put like the smallest size, so we would be billing 1 inch when it could be 3 or 4 inches. So it's, you know, drastically different. And the staff member did say that as she's looking at each account, more and more things come up. So it does take time, but she's being very thorough. She's got a giant spreadsheet that's just glorious. And so we'll definitely put that into a nice summary of the project so that you guys can see everything that happened. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, and thank you for putting these updates in here. I won't ask about it every time. I was just curious because I know a lot was going on. Councilmember?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I know you can't put out company names, but can you separate it like per industry type?
Yeah, absolutely.
Give us maybe as much information as we can get.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I guess just to reiterate too, no account changes are being made without a staff member having a personalized conversation with that customer. So we are sending out we're sending out letters to those folks, but that letter's not going out until somebody physically calls the customer and say, this is what we found on your account, and there's an opportunity for dialogue, Q&A, and clarification. We don't want to just hit people with a letter saying, we found this, your account's changing. So we're taking that proactive approach, and nothing is going to change until 2022.
Great, I appreciate that. I think that's fair. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, next on the agenda is the Borough Assembly report, and we appreciate our Borough Assembly member trying to attend telephonically. Do you know if she's on the line?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Assembly Rep Eklund. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Administration. It's been a busy month. A while ago, I mentioned that there was an ordinance appropriating some of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 money, and they had separated it out into 3 categories. One of them was kind of a iffy one, $3,403,341 to Capital Infrastructure Pay-Go project. Well, they selected those 3 projects at our last meeting. The Homer High School roof will be repaired, the West Homer Elementary Newark Street side stop water intrusion, and then they allocated and redirected $500,000 to critical bridge infrastructure by rebuilding and upgrading bridges within the Kenai Peninsula Borough. When I asked which bridges, they hadn't selected them yet, so I'm hoping to hear a report on that on our December 7th meeting, and I'll bring that information back. I really appreciate the fact that on the consent agenda tonight with the council was the request to have a assembly meeting in Seward like we used to do pre-pandemic for April. I tried to get that into the last meeting, and they asked me to hold off until the clerk could look at the calendars. And I don't know if we'll get some pushback because she's also presented the cost of having meetings in Seward and in Homer. It's a little over $10,000, but the cost of us, everybody going to Fulton every time is between $800 and $900. So it's not quite that much that's going to be. So next item that might be of interest to Seward was authorizing the mayor to execute a computer-aided dispatch services agreement with the city of Homer, which will allow the Homer access to the borough's CAD system. It involves integration critical systems that are important aspect of 911 call taking and the dispatch of first responders by a city's public safety answering point. So I asked if this would help in the instance where if you've ever called 911, you got routed to Soldotna, and that's not good. And as we just heard in the proclamation, we want to be as quick as we can. They said that calls made by cell phones go to Soldotna, but house calls made from house phones go to the local number. And I'm not sure about that, but probably Chief Nichols can answer that. So I'm not sure if it's something that the City of Seward wants to look into. I guess the City of Kenai has had this ability for over 10 years. So anything that would improve our emergency response is always a good thing. On November 15th, I was part of the East Peninsula Highway Emergency Service Area Board meeting. And it was new to me that we have this group, but it's a bunch of volunteers that do emergency response on the highway between the east side of the peninsula, so there are people from North Landing and Pass and Hope and even from Girdwood. And so they reported that they had received some Code Blue grants that will increase their essential EMS equipment in Hope. And we know that's important for any accidents along the highway. Girdwood reported that forestry and fire grants are now open, so I'm not sure if that's going to help anything out that our city might want to be a part of. Bear Creek is getting a new Firefighter 1 staff member soon. They'll be graduating, and they get their new truck in February. From that meeting, I went to my second meeting of the night, which was the Seward Bear Creek Flood Service Area Board, and another great group of volunteers that are working really hard on public education regarding salmon habitat and flooding. And you may have seen baby salmon live here signs around town. I think there's some along Second. And they are looking to find more funding that help with that education. I have been assigned to the liaison to the Resiliency and Security Advisory Commission, and I attended the building for their subcommittee building. It's a great group as well, really intelligent group, and they're putting together a list of data that has the costs that are incurred by running borough-owned buildings. And after they analyze the data, they'll pick a few of those buildings to make improvements or changes, recommend those to the assembly that are the most helpful. And the city should expect a request. They had to remind them that we're not HEA and we're not NSTAR, that the city of Seward has their own. So they will be sending a borough request for costs of utilities for the borough-owned buildings in Seward. The second component of that committee was something called the CPACE program, CPACE, which is active in Anchorage, and it's to help commercial business owners lower the cost of their utilities in their buildings. So that's something anyone with a commercial building might want to Google, CPACE. On the 17th and 18th, I took part in Kenai Peninsula Homeless Coalition meetings. One was held in Seward, representing the Eastern Penn, and they are working on their draft strategic plan. And the 18th was their final meeting of the whole Central Penn, so that should be coming out soon. And the 5 points that they are working on in that plan are data collecting, housing facilities, education and awareness, transportation and implementation. And the Mental Health Trust has agreed to fund a coordinator for that effort for 3 years. And then the last meeting of the month was on the 18th, the Seward Type A Council meeting. And I know that might sound like a little out of our realm, but we are still in need of many positions at our schools. And the one that was most needed at the elementary school is an interventionist, and they would really like like to have a counselor for the middle school and a separate one for the high school. Right now they share. And we're working to help, really try to get credit recovery and bring the loss that the pandemic has had on where the kids are academically back up. So there's tons of positions still available on the website, and if you are thinking of applying for studying, it's a really easy process. You don't have to go to Soldotna to complete it, and I would encourage anybody that's looking for some extra part-time work to do that. And last but not least, I hope you all got your PTA wreath. So is there any questions at this time?
Thank you. That was a great report. We really appreciate it. Are there any questions for the Assembly Rep? Cindy, that was so thorough. You've taken all our questions. So again, thank you for all your meetings and thanks for making time to be here tonight also.
Thank you. You're all doing great work. Good night. Happy
night.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Next on the agenda are other reports and announcements. Chamber of Commerce report, and I think we have the new Chamber of Commerce Director, Kat Sorensen, online. Is that right? Kat, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
We can. And your report's found on page 30 of our packet, but I'll let you go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, so first I did want to start by introducing myself and taking the opportunity to announce that I recently accepted the position of Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been with the Chamber as the Communications Director for nearly 2 years now, and I'm really excited to step into this new role. I look forward to all of the challenges it will present, as well as the expanded opportunities I'll have to serve our member businesses and the greater Seward community. And with that, I'll give my first update to the Council. This past month, over the first week of November, the Chamber hosted Startup Week, where we had several events that brought together Seward entrepreneurs at all the stages of starting or running their own businesses. Each of our events were well attended, including a discussion with Melissa Scudder on financing a small business and our female-led Ladies Who Launch event. Over the course of the week, we saw about 60 unique attendees across the entire weekend, with many attendees attending multiple events. And we think it was a great opportunity for networking, learning, and just a beginning entrepreneur lesson for a lot of people in town. And the Chamber wants to give a big thank you to Tony Backlon, Liberty Miller, and Kellyanne Koch for their help with all of the event planning. And then this past weekend, the Chamber helped organize, and I attended the Pacific Marine Expo with Christy, Norm Regis, the Harbor Master, and Kathy LeCompte of Aztec, which was a really great opportunity to network and showcase everything that Seward has to offer in the marine industry. Most exciting to me, though, was that it was the debut of our Seward Marine Guide, which is a 30-some-odd page publication dedicated to the marine industry, similar to our visitor guide, but solely for those coming to Seward for the marine industry or looking for a place to go that has all of the information about what to do related to the marine industry in town. And we handed copies out directly at the expo, and we will have about 3,000 copies on hand in Seward soon to be distributed where appropriate. So if anybody wants to get their hands on those, they'll be in a few weeks. And then down the pipeline, coming up this weekend, we've organized and will be hosting another Shop Small weekend. And this is kind of the antithesis to Black Friday, an opportunity for everyone to shop local and be rewarded for it. It's a great way to involve local businesses and get people excited about shopping local. And we're broadcasting the event to communities across the state, including Anchorage, Palmer, Wasilla, Homer, Kenai, Soldotna, as well as Seward locals. And all weekend long, different businesses in Seward and makers and artisans will be hosting unique specials and promotions. The Chamber will also have raffle entries for each at each participating store, vendor, or maker. So what you'll do is you'll go out on Friday and Saturday. You'll go to all of the stores, visit the makers, vendors, store shop owners, scan a QR code, and then enter a raffle. And then, so the more places you visit, the better your chance to win one of our great raffle prizes. And we hope that this event excites people and gives momentum to the idea of shopping local this holiday season, especially with the Kenai Cruisers Craft Fair returning December 3rd and 4th, and just a lot of holiday shopping down the pipeline. Beyond that, the wheels are in motion for fireworks again this New Year's Eve, and hopefully some exciting events around that. And anything else, I apologize. It's my first time doing this, but I hope I get better at the reports as time goes on, and I really look forward to working with the city and the council. If anybody ever has any questions or anything, you can reach me at director@stewart.com. The email address hasn't changed. And thank you all. I really appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Kat. Is there any questions for the director? Great, thanks again for a great weekend in Seattle, and thanks for being here tonight for your report.
Yes, thank you. Have a good one.
Next on the agenda, in person, live and in person, Seward Community Health Center third quarter 2021 report by Mr. Craig Ambraziani. And that's found starting on page 31 of your packet. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary Terry. Thanks for the opportunity to be here and talk with you guys. I did submit my report about a week or so ago, and I didn't know if you wanted me to go over anything on it or if you had any specific questions.
Are there any questions? I did notice that one thing that you said, and I don't know the terminology exactly, but your quality indicators continue to be below our expectations. Could you explain what that means?
Sure. We have, we record and report about 14 different quality indicators. Things like depression screening for everyone that's seen in the clinic, BMI, and then counseling if folks are out of sync with their BMIs. And what we found was we had a couple of things with some of those indicators is that over the last quarter we've done a lot of car visits to where we're going out to the car to do an exam and for people that are potentially that have COVID symptoms. So we do the visit out in the car. So we're not doing any weight or screenings of those types. So those hurt our indicators. Also, we've had a turnover of staff, and we found that some of our new staff didn't know exactly where to put some of the results and screening results in the electronic health record. So the thing was, we were in crisis mode with COVID, so we really didn't have a chance until recently to start to go back and fix these things and retrain staff about where some of these things need to be done. And we started doing that. Right now, we don't schedule patients on Wednesday afternoons. We do COVID testing, we do COVID vaccines, but we use that time for staff to educate, staff to meet and work on processes so that we can fix things as we move along that haven't been fixed in the last year and a half or so.
Great, thank you. And then just a couple other things I wanted to thank you. I know even our borough assembly member talked about the issues in the schools and different things, and it was helpful to read with your behavioral health consultant working in the schools and trying to help with some of the issues there. And that's going well?
It's going really well. We're pretty excited about it. We've been able to have our behavioral health consultant to integrate into the school and be more of a teacher's aide at times and observe and and then talk to the teachers and if necessary talk to parents about behaviors that they see. He also monitors, he helps with recess and things like that, mostly in the elementary school. And we've had some pretty good successes with that process. He's also expanding it into the middle school and into the high school. So it is an area we're pretty thin on that area right now with just one person. So it is an area that we may look at expanding in the next year or so.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions for the director? Go ahead.
I had a question about your mobile clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak about that?
Sure. We've received funding, and we've received all the funding we think we need right now to start to purchase and renovate a small RV for a mobile health clinic. And what we would use it for would be to do outreach, to do things like chronic care management. So folks that have chronic illnesses like diabetes or hypertension, high blood pressure, that we can actually go out to their house or to a local library or somewhere where it's easier to meet us, and we can do more testing and meetings with them. Things like, too, I'd like to see happen with the mobile clinic is maybe to go out to like Moose Pass and be able to hook up specialty telemed services through the mobile clinic. And then, well, I don't want to jinx us, but if we do have any more need to go out and vaccinate folks or go out and test, it would be a great avenue to do that also.
That's okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, we definitely appreciate the Seward Community Health Clinic during these pandemic times, and we know your staff has been working very hard, so I'll just say thank you very much, and thank you for being here tonight and providing us a very good report. So appreciate your time.
Thank you for all the support.
Next on the agenda is the online business license portal demonstration.
Council, can you see this, the screen? This is the entry page for customers, business owners in Seward to approach the online business license portal, and they would, well, let me go back real quick. Eventually, if we end up expanding the services that we provide through this, those additional services will continue to appear on this home screen. But for now, it's just business license. And they go in and they get an overview of the what's to expect. They start their application online, and what they do is first they sign up. Sorry. This is all fake information I'm putting in. It's all going to be wiped out of the system because we're still in the test environment. So, and they tell us who they are. Give us an address so we can contact them. And then this is a GIS system that is tied into the vendor's system that makes it a little convenient for people to actually find the address that they might want, that they're going to be working at. I'll just get that. I am the business owner. I'm working at 410 Adams Street. And while some of this might appear to be redundant, if you think that this is redundant to the previous screen, the reason is that we have multiple people in town that have the authority to establish a business license or renew a business license on behalf of their clients. And so one person can create an account and then go in and do an application for multiple different businesses. And that's the purpose for asking for the information.
And so you've been running through tests of the program already, is that correct?
So we have, and we have had several business owners, real business owners in town that we've given this test site to, and they've been kind enough to go through the system and give us feedback. This makes sense, that was easy to use. I was a little confused about this comment, and so based on their feedback, we've been continuing to make tweaks and adjustments to how the screen flow is, what the words are on the screens to take them through the process, just to try and simplify things.
And I'm just gonna ask you a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will this be, so when you bring it up either on a laptop or a home computer device or versus a phone mobile app, will it be on the main page? Will it be found under your department or under?
It'll be under business license, they'll pick on the business
Okay,
license,
okay.
where people are accustomed actually to going to find the application, the link to the state website, the borough website. So here, we have historically had like 20 different categories that a business owner could have, but we've been able to boil them down just to these 4 specific things. These types of businesses are specific because they require additional information. And if you are not a charter, a taxi, a short-term rental, or a hotel motel, you pick other, and you just go right in to, you just continue on. Now, if I had chosen, say, vehicle for hire, it would have given me a message that said, additional information is required, please come to the clerk's office. And it's just one piece of paper, but we can't put it into this system right now. It's very specific to taxi cabs. This is an option to upload or provide us information. It's completely optional for state license, borough, sales tax, what have you. I don't have it, so I'm just gonna say next, because it's an option. This is just a heads up that we're gonna ask for physical address. And then we wanna know, are you the contact person for this business, or is it someone else that we need to contact?
Brenda, did you?
Go ahead.
You said the vehicle for hire, you can't get that additional paperwork on here. Can you for any of the other 4 or 5 that you had on there, or do all of those require coming into the clerk's office?
Well, come to us or go to the harbor, for example. So I'll break it down real quick. Vehicle for hire, we have to have per vehicle, we have to have insurance that ties to that vehicle by VIN number. We have to have we have a form for each vehicle that a taxi cab runs. And then there's a separate fee that's involved with that. So we have to have the vehicle information and permit information tied to the VIN number and the license plate number. It's very specific. But we have half a dozen taxi cabs in town, and so they're pretty willing to work with us on that. Short-term rentals, community development has a little packet of information as a short-term rental application that they request. There is an option in this system. If a person fills out that application, they can upload it into here.
Oh, okay.
But it's not yet completed online, but they can download it and then upload it back to us.
Okay.
Completed. Okay. Charter, we just provide a message and say, don't forget to go to the harbor and visit them to fill out your PAX information. You know, it's just a redirect.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
And then the only other thing I wanted to show, this is like a review of all the information that I've provided as the account person or as the business owner. And then when I submit my application, the only thing left would be for me to make my payment. And so I can do that by credit card online, or I can do it with cash or check by mailing it in or coming in person. And if you notice here on the left side, when I come in after this, but in a few days' time, say, I want to say, what's the status of my application? I want to view it. This portion right here will show me where it is in the process of compliance checks. So after I make my payment, it goes to the city clerk's review, and then it goes through all these departments, and these would be green check marks, or they'd be yellow if somebody's still waiting for, an answer on something. And so I can follow that all the way along and know how close I am to finishing the process.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And that's what I wanted to get through and show you tonight.
Thank you for that. And then, just to reiterate, you're thinking next week to go live?
We anticipate next week. We have a meeting set up tomorrow and Wednesday this week again with the vendor because we're still, want to make sure everything's good. And then we'll launch it next week.
Any other questions? No, thank you. Next on the agenda is public hearings. We have two resolutions requiring a public hearing. Resolution 2021-129. Madam Clerk, could you read the title into the minutes?
Resolution 2021-129 is adopting the City of Seward 2022 operating budget and setting the mill rates.
And I'll need a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-129.
I'll second.
So this will be for the first public hearing, and will come back to us on December 13th. But we'll let administration go ahead and just present, and then we'll go to the public hearing portion. So that starts on page 41, and I'll turn it over to administration.
I don't have a lot to add other than to say that this has been a really, I'd say, thorough process. Administration looks forward to the second public hearing on this item and continuing on. We're pleased to present a balanced budget, and we're pleased to present a very, what we would consider, as the city manager says, a very honest and realistic budget. So.
Yeah, this was a long process, and losing a finance director about halfway through made it even more interesting. After our fourth work session, which was the day we found out that we had significant health insurance plan savings. So after putting motor pool back in, we had $126,766 surplus, and the city manager chose to throw that into street operations under infrastructure for sidewalks and roads. So that's, we put what was left over in there to make it a balanced zero budget. Other than that, all we did was put it in the accounting system and tied it out to the spreadsheets that the city manager had put together. And then we also added the revenue expenditure detail and summary before each fund that also showed you the actuals from the previous 5 years. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So first we'll go to public hearing, then we'll go back to questions. So right now I'm going to open the public hearing. Each person has 5 minutes to speak. Has anyone signed up?
Yes, we have Ellen O'Brien.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate this time to speak. I'm here. My name is Ellen O'Brien. I am here on behalf of Seward Area Hospice. Basically, I'm following up. Tanya Fortes, our program director, we spoke with the mayor and vice mayor, assistant city manager, and following that, sent a letter to the council, which I think you all should have received. And today, also submitted a letter of support. We are volunteer hospice. We are completely supported by donations. We've been in existence since 2017 and have been supported by grants and donations to this point very nicely by the community and who donate to the Seward Community Foundation and others. So thank everybody. But over the long term, although I expect hospices do get a lot of support from people who care for and people who appreciate the service, right now we've only been in existence a short time, and we will need help in paying our staff and continuing the normal business options in addition to our fundraising. And so I wanted to speak to the council at some time about supporting our hospice. And I have no details. I could provide them tonight, but I'm following up the letter I sent. The letter of support that I submitted today is from Robert Rang, Administrator of Providence, and my reason for accepting his offer, she did to give a letter of support. It's because we have a memorandum of agreement with Providence to provide services to people in the hospital and in nursing home, or long-term care. And that's been a little interrupted by COVID, but we still have the memorandum and are expecting to be allowed to go in and provide services there. Since Providence provides these services up in Anchorage and it's supported completely by them, I felt that it was appropriate to see if the city would like to support us. So, any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone else in the public wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Now back to administration. Are there questions for administration? Is there discussion at the dais? Again, we will see this back on December 13th. Okay, next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-130. Madam Clerk, could you read the title into the minutes, please?
Resolution 2021-130 is adopting the City of Seward 6-year capital improvement program.
Thank you, and I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2021-130.
I'll second.
Thank you. To the administration, and that's starting on page 150. Is there any comments or explanation with this resolution?
Madam Mayor, the only comment I would make is back to my comment during the city manager's report that city administration will be working with our state and federal lobbyists and our legislators to get as many of these projects funded into the future. We're looking forward to the federal infrastructure package to possibly meet up with some of these, and we're going to be working with our grant writer Ben Coleman with R&M Engineering as well to especially look at our priority items that come out of our legislative priorities list resolution and the other items in the CIP list to move as many of these forward as we can.
Thank you, and with that, I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak with this resolution?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing portion. Are there any comments? Are there any questions for administration? I'll go ahead and have a comment. So during AML, I did attend the session on grant writers. And I understand that we do have a grant writer on staff with R&M. You know, I think it would be good to have just a frank discussion with him and make sure that they have the capacity to manage multiple grants and expertise. Because I also don't think it would be inappropriate in this sort of situation where we have so many grant opportunities if we need to have multiple grant writers. And, I think that the grant writers are receptive to having that conversation because they also want to be successful. Like, it helps them to be successful with their applications. So I just want us to make sure that we're being very aggressive. And that's my only comment.
And I would agree with you on that. The city manager and I had a good discussion, I believe, right after your conversation up at AML. Two things. One, she's starting to reach out and look for some other grant writers. I can send you guys some illustrative examples from projects that R&M has done. They've got a pretty good portfolio of work in the grant writing team that they have, and in fact, they've got a team of grant writers. The other thing to think about is there is some natural advantage that happens by using the same engineering, or having the engineering firm. So in this instance, our engineering firm, and we're trying not to say on-call engineer because R&M did the breakwater project. I mean, they've done a ton of projects in our harbor and throughout the city. They worked with us for, I saw a document the other day, an R&M project that they did in 1980 for the city of Seward. So they've worked with us for a long, long time. They've got a good track record. I'll send you guys some examples. They're working on projects in Haines and St. Paul. They're working on a harbor project. So they're very familiar with the state of Alaska. The other thing is having the engineer also work literally the next cubicle over from the person who's doing the grant writing. is a lot of times those grants are gonna require technical information that an engineer will have access to. And so having those people have that synergy is gonna enhance our opportunity to access a lot of those grant dollars, because if we used a separate grant writing agency, they're still gonna have to work with our engineering firm in order to write some of those grant applications. So we're definitely looking outside the box to see if there's other firms that we can make use of. And we're looking, frankly, in our own community, because we've got grant writers in our own community, like the Shellfish Hatchery has a pretty successful grant writer. So we're looking outside the box to see what we can do, but as much as we can, we'd like to use R&M, because it's gonna just be more streamlined as well, so.
That's great. Thank you for asking those questions ahead of time. Are there any comments or questions? And again, we'll for sure see this on December 13th, but also, I think that if there's questions or comments, we've discussed maybe having a work session on December 6th.
Yes,
Or a special meeting. So I think that, you know, I know it's not quite on the books yet, but I would support that, because I think it gives the community another opportunity and gives us more time for questions. So I just wanted to bring that up. I know it's not on the calendar yet, but I guess I would like to see that happen. Any other comments from council? Moving through our agenda, next on the agenda is item B6, discuss attendees for Juneau and Washington DC travel, and that's found on page 244.
Could you tell us the dates of both of those?
Yeah, so right now.
It's not in here.
Yeah, so right now for the Juneau trip, the dates are January 24th and 25th, potentially travel on, you know, the 23rd or however that works out. And then the Washington trip is April 5th, 6th, and 7th. And we've already been working with our lobbyists to set up meetings during those times. I'll jump out and just say as the mayor, I am happy to commit the time and attend both those opportunities. And I don't know if anyone else, Vice Mayor?
I'd like to go to Juneau this time.
Okay. Is there any objections to that? Vice Mayor McClure? Yeah, no, that's great. I think your longtime experience in the state will help open some doors, so that's wonderful. Now, the Washington DC trip in April, I know Councilmember Casagrande has expressed some interest in going. I don't know if there's anyone else that would like to attend.
Who typically goes, or how many people typically go?
You know, John, when you went, was it yourself and the mayor and then the city manager? So I think it's between 3 and 4. I think if it gets 4, if it gets more than 4, I think 5 is a crowd. But if we had 4 people go, it would show a good showing. I think our budget could probably handle it. I know for sure the city manager will attend both. Any other interest?
Wasn't Councilmember Osenga supposed to go to DC last time?
Did you?
Then he couldn't go.
I would suggest that.
Again?
I mean, I'll go again, but if you want to go.
I think you should go.
We can.
If you were supposed to go last time.
DC in April?
Sure.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Councilmember Osenga, Councilmember Casagrande, and Mayor Terry for Washington DC. And then right now we have Vice Mayor McClure and the mayor for the January trip. Anyone else interested? Okay. Well, we'll start with that and see if we need to make any changes. Great. Informational items and reports that are included in our packet. We have City and Providence financials. We have Councilmember Randy Wells' oath of office. Thank you for doing that ahead of time.
Yep.
And then we have a Small Business Saturday proclamation. Are there any questions or comments regarding those inclusions? Next on the agenda is citizen comments. There is no sign up for this comment period, and the time is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Go ahead.
Linda Paquette, outside city limits. I want to thank the Assistant City Manager for your comments and reassurance. That paragraph was tied to the paragraph on the next page that specifically put the dates of the next dredge. So that's where we got that feeling. I want to thank you for filling the PACAB seats with the 2 people. But one of those people, I've been told, it does tend to be a snowbird. So it brings that issue back still about how we might be able to change things so that those people could still participate fully in the meeting, even if they're not in the building. And then the only other thing was in the packet, I don't know if you caught this already, but there were 2 proclamations or awards. The visual, the copies of the actual, they both have the same name on them. So, I don't know, I mean, it's just a typo. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Any other citizens wishing to speak? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Christiana Smith, outside city limits, and Assembly Member Cindy Eklund mentioned the Kenai Peninsula Homeless Coalition meeting that took place last week for the Eastern Peninsula area, which includes Seward, Moose Pass, and Pope. This is a peninsula-wide coalition, and there was about 6 Seward residents that were on that meeting. And that typically seems to be about the number that does spread across several different sectors that attend the coalition's meetings as well. They've been working on the strategic planning framework to put into place. And I just, this past week at the PACAB meeting, there was some comments made to assumptions of observation of the Seward homeless population possibly causing some destruction, vandalism to the harbor bathrooms and showers. And so Seward is not exempt from the homeless population. One of the things that the Homeless Coalition is working on across the peninsula is emergency shelter. That's one of the top priorities of the strategic framework, because even in Soldotna and Kenai, there's nowhere for people to go when temperatures dip below 20 degrees. And the last week, almost 2 weeks, we've been in single digits down to negative. And so I just want to encourage council to look at how maybe council or some of the advisory committees can help facilitate conversation and work towards educating on this situation that some of our community members face. And yeah, just talking points. It was kind of eye-opening to hear it get mentioned in a city committee meeting the way it did, but then also not necessarily see any representation at the coalition to hear possibilities on how to work towards the resilience building to help this vulnerable population. So I just want to kind of reiterate Cindy Eklund's comments that were made for the Kenai Peninsula Homeless Coalition, and encourage if Seward doesn't speak up the Eastern Peninsula area doesn't speak up for this peninsula-wide coalition, we might be forgotten. But, you know, just this past week, it was brought up and highlighted that homelessness is a situation that is happening in Seward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments. I'll start with administration.
Sure. Just wanted to welcome Councilmember Wells. Good to have council be back to 7 members. Also, a shout out to our borough representative, Cindy Eklund. I think great report tonight. She called a couple weeks ago. We had a really good conversation. I just want to thank her for her active level of engagement at the borough level. I think she's going to represent Seward really, really well. Wanted to thank Donnie Lane again as well. It's really cool to see his, you know, growing young family and being a part of our community. He was a transplant from Dutch Harbor and just a really welcome to the team. And Officer McKillican, I had the pleasure of knowing him from back when I lived in Southeast. He was the chief of police in Hoonah for a while down there, and we are really, really fortunate to have Dave McKillican. Unfortunately, he's not with us tonight. He's down in Idaho at the moment, but just a shout out to the whole police department, and like Donnie mentioned, it does take a team, and yeah, thank you all.
Very good. Coming back to council, I'm going to kick it off with Councilmember Wells. Do you have any comments?
I'm happy to be here. It was exciting for me to get to participate. So thank you all very much for the trust, and I look forward to working with all of you as a team.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Calhoun?
Just welcome Mr. Wells to the club, so to speak. Hope everybody's ready for a great Thanksgiving. One thing, and I hope I'm not out of line with this, just to remind people that the Legion does provide a community Thanksgiving meal, and anybody is welcome to come from 1:30 to 5 p.m. There's obviously no charge, and we also deliver meals into the community for those people that cannot come and visit us. So if anybody is listening, or you know people that might want to take advantage of that, just have them call us. We have a list of delivery drivers. It's a lot of fun, a lot of good volunteers, and there shouldn't be any reason for people in Seward not to be able to get a good meal on Thanksgiving for sure. And just thanks to the PD and to all those guys. Have a special heart for law enforcement, and I think they're doing a great job here. Appreciate that, and everybody just be safe and watch out for your neighbors. It's cold.
Welcome to the dais,
Thank you.
Councilmember Wells. Thank you to Dispatcher Lane and Officer McKillican for a great job. Don't forget, shop small weekend, and happy Thanksgiving.
Councilmember DeMoss?
Welcome, Councilmember Wells. Excited to have you. I wanted to touch on AML. Thank the city for sending me. It was just a really good networking opportunity, and it was good for, I think, just us to spend time together as a council and represent Seward. So that was really fun. A couple of things that I picked up from there. I think the biggest thing was just buying local, especially right now. Buy Alaska, buy Seward, as much as we can, especially for the holidays. Also, I wanted to point out that AML was at the Captain Cook, and the service was just top-notch everywhere we went the whole time, and so I really appreciate that, especially with the current labor shortage. Thank you for getting that online business portal, Brenda. I think that's super great. It's going to be really nice for everybody, a lot easier. I would like to talk about how our city could support hospice and look into ways that we can make sure that they continue doing what they've been doing here. I know they've only been here since 2017, and I don't want them to go away. So I don't know if that's something that we need to look at, how other communities support hospice or what we can do. But I think it's definitely something that we should discuss, and I appreciate the woman, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, for being here today and speaking on it. And just one more thing, I wanted to thank the new Community Development Director, Jason Bickling. I had the opportunity to meet with him on Friday. We had a really good meeting, and I just see things moving along really positive and efficiently in that department already, and I'm really looking forward to getting a lot of business done and working with you guys. So that's all. Thank you.
Well, I've got a whole bunch of stuff. Welcome, Councilmember Wells.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. I want to really thank Cindy Eklund for her report and her presence there. She's attending all the meetings that she should be attending and reporting on them. I mean, I did that for 6 years, and she's seeing how much there is to the job, but she's doing it incredibly well. I wanted to just make a comment about the Planning Commission. With her being now elected to the Borough Assembly, we do need to come up with someone, at least one or more people that would be willing to be on the Borough Planning Commission from our area. And I did that before I got elected to the Borough Assembly. So if anybody's interested in what that involves, you could speak with Cindy Eklund or myself about it. We can tell you how kind of, you know, the basics about it. Also, we have sent a request to hopefully get the Borough Assembly to meet here in April like they used to do. If that does come through, I'm going to be screaming at people to come and attend, because usually I was the only one attending, and that was part of the reason that our current borough mayor feels that it's not necessary to meet in the outlying communities, that people don't attend. So I know that from before. So just a thing, I'll be speaking to that. I want to welcome Michael Brown and Brandy Holmdahl, Brandy back, and then to be on Pat Cab. That's pretty special that they're on that. I wanted to congratulate my across the street neighbor, Kat Sorensen. I didn't realize she now is the chamber director. That's pretty amazing. And also sitting here, the audience wouldn't have, television audience wouldn't have seen, but we had a presence of all the department heads here tonight in case there were questions about the budget. And they've been around for all this, the work sessions and things. I just want to give a shout out to our amazing department heads that sit through meetings, and even if they're not called on to answer questions, they're here, and I totally appreciate them. And with that, happy Thanksgiving.
Great, thank you. I wanted to let council and the public know that I did have a chance to briefly meet with Senator Murkowski while I was in Juneau, and we did discuss the tunnel and her support of making sure that that gets fully funded. I would hate to have you repeat your comments, but I was wondering if the clerk could put on the next council meeting, just under presentations or other reports, just an opportunity for myself, Councilmember Casagrande, Councilmember Osenga, if we just want to make a couple brief comments, and you could highlight those again too. Just an opportunity, so we're showing the public and other council members that we are taking advantage, and that's useful time. And nothing in writing needs to be submitted. We'll just say our verbal that night. Shop small. If you haven't done your Christmas shopping, and we all know that there's logistical shipping issues, you do not have to worry about if you shop small, and the dollar that you spend here just gets reverberated through the community to your neighbors, and that's November 26th to the 29th. I was able to attend one of the Startup Week events, and I saw the horror stories, and everyone loves a car wreck, so there was some good stuff, and I heard that statewide Seward did the most with that Startup Business Week, and it was well supported. December 3rd and 4th is the holiday fair, and you'll see more of your neighbors at that also. Thank you for keep putting redistricting information in the packet. When we talk to the lobbyist, we're kind of doing a hold and wait and monitoring, but we need to pay attention as that moves forward, because I am expecting some lawsuits, and we'll see where we fall with that. Thank you again to Councilmember Wells. It is great having you at the dais. It's wonderful being at full strength. Congrats to President Brenda Blue with the Association of Municipal Clerks. It's very exciting that you have that honor. I believe for at least this year. And we look forward to you sharing your knowledge with the rest of the state of Alaska. And then maybe at that December 6th work session, there are a couple nonprofits that we support, and maybe we could just even bring up hospice in the mix and see how we might move forward potentially, just to have that discussion. And with that, everyone had really great comments at the end. I appreciate everyone's thoughtfulness on the dais and appreciate administration, and I will adjourn the meeting at 8:25.